Wyatt SICKS has officially debuted in the WWE, and fellas, it may have honestly been the single coolest piece of cinematic production that the WWE has ever produced. It was shocking, eerie, scary, exciting, bone-chilling, and more than anything, it was cool as fuck. After months and months of clues, teases, and buildup, there was a lot of concern that this new group might underwhelm or maybe just straight up be dead on arrival. After all, this is a group that has to follow up the legacy of Bray Wyatt without the brilliance of Bray Wyatt himself to plan it and lead it. Instead, it was left in the hands of the Bo Leave guy. But what we just witnessed is honestly just further proof that we need to let Triple H have all the goddamn time in the world that he wants to cook up 5-star meals with his booking. Because I'm gonna say it, that was the single coolest goddamn debut, re-debut, return, whatever you want to call it, that I have ever seen in my 22 years as a wrestling fan. So let's talk about the Wyatt SICKS in this video. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, ring that bell for notifications. If you're a wrestling fan, I'm confident that you're gonna fall in love with this YouTube channel because we always upload daily wrestling content. Just to clarify, in this particular video, I'm only going to be talking about the Wyatt SICKS themselves. So if you do want my full review of the entire, frankly, fantastic episode of Monday Night Raw that just happened, you can find it over on the Patreon, patreon.com/SantiZap. I'll put the link in the description or the pinned comment. First and foremost, I just want to talk about how goddamn awesome that debut was. I genuinely believe that may have been the most impactful debut on WWE TV since maybe the Nexus invaded Raw all the way back in 2010. Although they are obviously very different groups with probably very different motives, they brought about the destruction of what seemed the WWE itself. They were both dangers to not just the members of the locker room, but to the wider definition of what the WWE is. They were bringers of chaos, a chaos that seemed random, uncontrolled, and sinister. Look, it's not every day that we get something in the WWE that fundamentally changes the storyline canon of what is normal and isn't normal within the confines of the WWE, because not only did the Wyatt SICKS bring chaos about the WWE, they've now seemingly made murder canon in the world of the WWE. Similar to the Nexus who attacked the in-ring crew and choked out poor Justin Roberts all those years ago, the Wyatt SICKS brought destruction to the entire backstage area, including security guards, production crew, Gorilla, and even poor Chad Gable. Chad Gable, who, by the way, may have just had the worst workday of all time. He lost his match against Braun Strowman, he lost his team that he considered his family, and he got murdered. Talk about a rough day in the office. I don't ever want to hear about how bad your Mondays are. Obviously, we don't know if he's actually been killed off on screen. That's the narrative, at least, that we're all deciding to go with all the memes of RIP Chatty Daddy. But I actually think that the massacre that we witnessed didn't actually happen, that we actually got to see an alternate reality that lives in the world and in the mind of the Wyatt SICKS. Maybe it's supposed to be an omen of what's to come for those that don't change their ways. Because there are people speculating that people like Carmelo Hayes, Gunther, and even Dominic Mysterio were amongst the pile of bodies, but Carmelo Hayes himself already debunked that on Twitter. And frankly, I don't really think that it makes a heck of a whole lot of sense for Gunther to be one of the bodies in that pile, considering he hasn't even been on TV for a while. But I will say, I do like the fan theory that's going around that those lookalikes were there on purpose as an omen of who they're going to be targeting in the future, that they are going to be targeting those specifically that have turned their back on their group and their families. Chad Gable turned his back on Alpha Academy, who he considered to be his family. Carmelo Hayes turning his back on Trick Williams, who he considered to be his brother. Dominic Mysterio turning his back on Rey Mysterio, who's his literal father, and Gunther, I guess, turning on Giovanni Vinci. That one might be a stretch. Honestly, I'm loving that the internet is going full true crime detective with all of the clues that may be there or maybe actually aren't there, and we're pretending like they are. Overall, I was just so incredibly impressed with this debut. Obviously, there's still a long ways to tell whether or not this group is actually going to be successful, but the very early signs are saying that it almost absolutely will be successful. I had my concerns about the fact that this supernatural group wouldn't have the genius of Bray Wyatt leading it, but I can say with confidence that my fears, at the very least for now, have been quelled, and I'm fully on board with jumping in and just seeing where this ride takes me. But now let's talk about the actual members of the Wyatt Six. Let's look at the masks, what they represent, and who is under those masks. The obvious one is the leader, Uncle Howdy. We don't know if that's the name that he's going to be going as, but that's what we're all still referring him to, who has already been confirmed to be Bo Dallas. And if for whatever reason you have your doubts that it's Bo Dallas, just like look at their jawline, their smile, their beard. They're identical. It's Bo Dallas. And it's no secret that Bo Dallas is going to have immense pressure to make this character work and this group work as a whole. Not only because it's the continuation of the great legacy that Bray Wyatt left behind, but because this group is full of people who are honestly likely on their last legs to make a WWE run actually work. Because even though this group has had tremendous hype behind them and admittedly had an amazing, unforgettable debut, it's not a group that's populated by megastars and main event players. In fact, I would say that these are misfit toys within the WWE that have struggled to find their footing, who would struggle on their own, but collectively as a unit may have found something special that will finally stick. We have the Crawling Witch, who we can pretty confidently assume that it's Nikki Cross, considering she confirmed it on her own Twitter. And if I have to guess, Nikki Cross is playing the human manifestation of Abby the Witch, the doll from the Firefly Funhouse. As far as I can tell, Nikki Cross is also the only one who really showed signs of any sort of demonic possession leading into this in the last couple of months, as she would just like stare into the camera and stare into the abyss, just randomly walk in some random pattern backstage on episodes of Monday Night Raw. Everyone else seemed to just sort of be added into this group. She seemed to actually have maybe a little bit of build up towards this. Maybe they'll actually explain why she was staring into the abyss. I don't know. We'll see. We also have the hammer wielding rabbit, who I'm assuming is a returning Eric Rowan, considering under the mask you can see the big red beard. But obviously the hammer and the rabbit is meant to represent Rambling Rabbit, who was always killed by a hammer by Bray Wyatt in the Firefly Funhouse. If you want to dig even deeper into this, you can even connect that hammer that he's wielding to Rowan's days as a member of the Bludgeon Brothers, where he was a tag team with Luke Harper, who was also a member of the Wyatt family, where they'd go around with big ass goofy looking hammers. It obviously makes sense that Rowan is part of this group. He recently re-signed with the company quietly a little while back, but he's also the last surviving member of the original Wyatt family trio, so this one didn't need any buildup like the Nikki Cross addition to the group. We also have the guy in the bird mask, which is meant to represent Mercy the Buzzard, yet another puppet from the Firefly Funhouse. This is the one that hasn't really, at least as of the making of this, had any proper confirmation, but I think it's a fair assumption to assume that this is likely a returning Dexter Lumis, who's been off of TV now for well over a year. He never had any ties to the Wyatt family prior to this, but he definitely plays the creepy psychopathic serial killer pretty damn well. That, plus they weren't doing anything with him anyways, makes him a pretty good addition to the group. Lastly, we have the guy in the pig gas mask, and that mask is obviously supposed to represent Huskus the pig, also from the Firefly Funhouse. Just from looking at him and seeing his beard, you can immediately tell that this is Joe Gacy from NXT, plus he's also confirmed it on Twitter as well. Although Joe Gacy never had any official ties with Bray Wyatt, he was definitely a character that was inspired by Bray Wyatt, and many hardcore NXT fans really saw him as the continuation of a Bray Wyatt-like character, and many people really did just compare him straight up to Bray Wyatt in terms of character work, but also moveset and body type. type. If you didn't know, Joe played a very Far Cry 5 style spooky cult leader back in NXT, leading a group called the Schism, kind of similar to Bray Wyatt in NXT and in the early days of the main roster, where he also led a cult called the Wyatt family. But once his faction was disbanded, he became kind of like this unhinged lunatic, but ultimately he still felt like his character had no direction and there wasn't much planned or structured for him in the future for the main roster. So being in a role like this one is, one, brilliant because I think he's a great addition. He already kind of just has the fit for it. And two, I also think it's a lifeline for his overall WWE career that didn't really seem to be going anywhere in the first place. So those are the members of the Wyatt Six, but if you're good at math, you'll realize that there's only 5 members. Well, SICKS is actually a play on words. The official name of the group is the Wyatt Six, as in sick people, but the iconography of the number 6 is very apparent in their logos and in their merch already, with the S in the 6 being a literal 6. So the question is, can we expect a 6th member of this group? Maybe we do get another member, and if we do, it would make sense for it to be Alexa Bliss, adding another female to the group, somebody who has strong ties to Bray Wyatt as well. However, I do think that in terms of her star power, I think she would kind of stand out as a bit of a sore thumb because everyone else in the group is a bit of a misfit toy that hasn't been able to make it work in the WWE. Meanwhile, Alexa Bliss is a superstar in the WWE. Honestly, I think that 6th spot for the Wyatt Six should be symbolically left empty, and the 6th person should be none other than Bray Wyatt himself, represented by the lantern that's now being carried around by the group and Uncle Howdy. It's very clear that Bray is meant to be part of this group, at the very least in spirit. Not only are they using characters directly inspired by the Firefly Funhouse and the Lantern, but they're also using Bray's most recent theme song before he passed away, and the imagery of the door that both he and Nikki Cross came out of is the same. So now that we're here, the question really is, who are they gonna go after first? Because we don't know that they're good guys or bad guys, because they did something heelish because they attacked, innocent people, but they also did something babyface-like by taking out a dastardly tyrannical heel like a Chad Gable. And I think that is kind of the obvious answer. I think you have to immediately assume that something is going to build up with Chad Gable, maybe Alpha Academy, maybe the Creed brothers. I'm pretty confident that that's where things are going to start off first, especially if Chad Gable isn't actually dead, if that was just a dream, an image, an alternate reality of what things could be. I honestly kind of like the idea of maybe the Wyatt Six taking Chad Gable through a Christmas Carol Ebenezer Scrooge-like story, showing Chad Gable, the ghost of Chad Gable past, the ghost of Chad Gable present, and the ghost of Chad Gable future, which in the story of A Christmas Carol, Ebenezer Scrooge ends with him dying. I think that'd be kind of cool. Maybe they go after the Pride, which can be a continuation of Bray Wyatt's last scheduled feud against Bobby Lashley that was supposed to blow off at WrestleMania 39. Plus, it was Bobby Lashley that last laid a big ass beating into Uncle Howdy. Maybe they go after LA Knight, the last person that Bray Wyatt had a proper feud with that culminated into something. Maybe they even go after Jey Uso for claiming that the Fireflies are now his, although after the show ended, Jay was real quick to give those Fireflies back to the Wyatt Six in an interview backstage for WWE.com. Maybe it is the theory that people have that they're gonna be going after the people that have turned their back on family. Family has been a major construct and a major word and a major story piece for the Wyatts as a whole for as long as they've been around. But I'm actually going to leave this question up to y'all in the comments. Who do you think that this new group should go after first? Because I think the options might kind of be limitless here. Frankly, I'm just incredibly excited about what this group has to offer. The only ask that I have from the WWE and Triple H is that they just don't make the same mistakes that they made with The Fiend. Don't have this group go after championships. Going after championship kind of grounds them in a reality as people that value material wealth and achievements. This group should transcend the idea of titles and wealth. They should care about one thing and one thing only, which should just be chaos. In all honesty, wins and losses just shouldn't matter for this group. They should just be here to be a presence, an ever-looming entity in the world of the WWE. I also don't want this group to be overexposed. I don't want something like this every single episode of Raw every single episode of SmackDown, I do want them to be a bit more of a situation where less is more. However, that being said, I do want them at some point to make their presence known in NXT in some way, shape, or form, because the Wyatt family and every single one of the members of the current Wyatt Six has their ties starting in NXT. Maybe a lantern appears in front of Trick Williams, maybe signaling that they're gonna go after Carmelo Hayes for what Carmelo Hayes did to him. I don't know. I just love all the fantasy booking that's going on right now. I'm incredibly excited. I think that this is one of the coolest things that's happened in the WWE in a really, really long time. But folks, thank you so much for watching this. Again, let me know who you feel the Wyatt Six should be feuding with, but that's it. I'm done. Get out of here.